Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm Jeff Howe, joined by CJ Vogel. He is live at Royal Texas Memorial Stadium. Texas 38, San Jose State 7. We'll talk about the game here in just a second. I want to thank our game day sponsors for our coverage here at On Texas Football. Flight by Yingling, Von Lane, and Tito's. CJ, it seemed like for the most part today, the toughest opponent Texas faced was itself. Penalties, self-inflicted wounds. You're never angry with a 31-point win, but I know Arch said it post-game, Sark said it post-game, sloppy, and there's a lot of areas where this team can still improve.
Yeah, there is a ton that this team needs to work on and that they will work on. And remember, it is early in the season. This is week 2. You do play these games for this exact reason, to improve ahead of SEC football. And look, when they play Florida, they're going to need more reps just like this to figure out what exactly is going wrong. 12 penalties, 115 yards, 2 of 12 on third downs. I think penalties take the cake in terms of where Texas needs to improve, but third downs were horrific. Those average distances on third downs, 9.7 yards, Jeff. So, look, you had a 2 red zone turnovers as well. It was a pretty poor performance. Again, 31-point victory. You walk out 1-0 on the weekend, but altogether, this was not a good performance by the Texas offense, and there is a plenty to improve upon, especially getting that camaraderie and that rapport with Arch Manning and Ryan Wingo.
Yeah, 2 for 12 on third down. CJ, you mentioned the average to-go distance of 9.7 yards, 0 for 6 on third and 9+. I think that's the problem is half of your third downs were third and longs. CJ, and that goes back to the penalties. 12 penalties for 115 yards. And Sark said it in the postgame, and everybody that watched it would probably agree. It wasn't just pre-snap penalties. It wasn't just penalties during the snap. It wasn't just one side of the ball. Everybody had a hand in the ineptitude today. CJ, how much of that do you chalk up to this team still young, growing in a lot of ways, as opposed to, man, right now, through 8 quarters, this just looks like a sloppy, undisciplined football team right now?
I don't really chalk it up to young and inexperienced. I don't look at who the names are that are creating these penalties. And look, we could talk about Colin Simmons, but I do think there's a lot of these guys that are fighting for extra snaps or fighting for time on the field and just trying to do too much. And for Colin Simmons specifically, look, I don't mean to pick on him because he's a hellacious player, right? He's an All-American level talent. But I do think that he's pressing a bit. 2 offsides. I mean, look, that's telling you that he's trying to get a jump in which he's trying to beat the ball, right? He's trying to get into the backfield quicker than anybody else, trying to make a play. But you got to play discipline. Parker Livingstone a holding on the outside, DJ Campbell a holding on the inside on a scramble play by Arch. These guys are trying to extend blocks, but ultimately you got to play discipline. And that's exactly what was stalling drives early, right? We talk about drops, we talk about penalties, self-inflicted. Jeff, you put it best in the intro. Texas was by far their biggest enemy early on, and the one I haven't yet touched on, but the all-out blitz to block the punt, of roughing the punter, you allow an extra life for San Jose State. They don't score, but against the better team, those are the exact type of situations where you receive a punt on the plus 45, and the offense has to return back to the sideline because of truly just a mental error.
Yeah, no question. CJ, we can talk about what needs to improve, but let's go ahead and talk about the positive for just a second. You got that 8-minute stretch from about the 4.5-minute mark of the first quarter until almost the 12-minute mark of the second quarter. It's a 28-point surge by the offense, 3 turnovers forced by the defense. CJ, I think that's what makes the other stuff so frustrating is when there are those stretches where this team does play complementary football, we see it, and it looks really, really good.
Yeah, it's interesting, the way that happened, because it's mirrored what we've seen in the past where Texas kind of goes on a 2, 3, 4 possession run offensively in between the first and second quarters. That's been a lot of where they've done their damage offensively over the last 3 years. Obviously, today, I don't believe they needed a drive longer than 36 yards to do just that with 3 straight touchdowns off of 3 straight turnovers. The defense was flying. We heard Sarkisian talk about it on Monday, the need for complementary football. Well, if you're able to add 21 points in the span of about 5 minutes, you're doing something right. I think it was a 9-play stretch there, Jeff, in which Texas had an interception, a fumble recovery, and then 2 touchdowns, all within 9 snaps. That's tremendous. And I'm going to liken it to NBA terms here for folks that follow the NBA. It reminded me a little bit of the third quarter Warriors in their heyday with Clay and Steph. Yep. They come out of halftime and they immediately just start splashing threes, and they just go on a run where 3 possessions turn to 9 points, and all of a sudden a 5-point deficit turns to a 15-point deficit and you feel like you're out of the game. That's exactly what Texas did today. Now, are you able to do that beyond just 3 possessions? That's the key.
It's really reminiscent, CJ, of those Lincoln Riley Oklahoma teams. Now, this Texas program under Sark plays much better defense than those Lincoln Riley Oklahoma teams played. But whether it was Baker Mayfield or Kyler Murray, quarterback in Oklahoma, you knew the run was coming. You just didn't know when, and you hoped you could either get ahead or manage to stay ahead or sustain the run. But you knew the run was coming, and that's kind of where Texas is right now. CJ, let's talk about Arch Manning. When you look at the box score, anybody that didn't watch the game, they'll see, okay, Arch threw for 295 and 4 touchdowns, did have the 1 interception, which we'll get to, had a 20-yard rushing touchdown. So you'd say, hey, really good bounce back. And I think for the most part it was good, but even Arch would tell you still a lot to clean up from his game.
Yeah, look, Arch is really tough on himself. And we heard it from Sark today saying, look, we needed our guys to kind of rally around him. And especially after the first few possessions, we needed them to build him up. Because I'm sure there were some doubts going back into that third possession. And look, Texas faced the 3rd and 3. It was a great call by Sark for the little slip screen up the top, the pump and go for Livingstone, who made a great play and touchdown run. But there wasn't any real success. And throughout the day, there wasn't a lot of consistency or drive sustainability for the Texas offense. But for Arch, look, it was a bit of a up and down performance, right? The red zone interception was really ugly, but at that same time, you see exactly why you call on him to make plays, and that scamper into the end zone looked just like the one that he had against Mississippi State a year ago, just tiptoeing the sideline. It's those type of plays that you love to see, but you then see guys, you see him errant down the field to Parker Livingstone. You see him overthrow Ryan Wingo in the end zone. Accuracy hasn't yet been what we were expecting, and I say that as firmly as I can. I expect Arch to be more accurate. I would say he expects himself to be more accurate. There's a level that this Texas offense is missing right now, and it's at the quarterback position. Will it get there by Florida? We'll wait and see. Again, fortunately, plenty of more opportunities for dropbacks, pass attempts, and pressure diagnosis for Arch over the next 2 weeks.
CJ, what we can definitely say about the offense is that the preseason hype, and this started in January, regarding Parker Livingston and the hype on Jack injuries that we heard once he got here during the summer. Man, the hype on those two guys is real. They have been every bit as good as advertised. And while Arch and Ryan Wingo are still kind of working out the kinks, trying to get on the same page, Livingston and injuries have been tremendous, CJ, through the first 2 games.
Yeah, I think Parker Livingstone is fantastic. In fact, throw him more targets. He only had 5, hauled in 4 of them for 128 yards and 2 scores. Obviously, the 83-yard touchdown, Jeff, that's the highlight. But the biggest play for Livingstone today, or at least the most impressive, was one that didn't even count, right? It was a holding penalty that negated his really impressive scramble drill draw reception down the sideline. That was the best play today. And I think Sark put it best. When the play is designed to go to Parker's direction, he makes the play. You could talk about getting on the field, but when you have opportunities, right, and you end up capitalizing and then making that a consistency, well, then you just become a mainstay in the offense. And look, I think if Ohio State was any indication of the talent that he might possess, I think every Texas fan here in DKR today watched Livingstone saying, all right, let's get this guy the ball a little bit more. So I was really impressed with him all the way through. And for injuries, I mean, again, that depth at tight end, Jeff, 5 different guys saw the field, but highlighted by injuries, who, again, I think is very underrated in the run blocking aspect of things. And obviously with his athleticism vertically down the field, what a weapon he is and will be for this Texas offense all the way throughout the season.
Overall, CJ, just seemed like a day. It was either strikes or gutters for the offense all day. And I felt like what encapsulated the day was really how they bookended it. It started with a 28-yard flip pass to DeAndre Moore getting called back because of a penalty, and it ends with, well, it looked like a pretty nice drive to end the game with a lot of backups in. Jarrett Gibson fumbling the ball once you got inside the red zone. So, again, probably when you average it all out, CJ probably ends up being somewhere in the middle of the road. The peaks were really, really high and really nice to look at, but a lot fewer of those valleys going forward for the offense. It's just thankfully they're making these mistakes against San Jose State, and they've got two more games to get the kinks worked out before SEC play starts. Once again, want to thank our game day sponsors for our game day coverage here at On Texas Football. That's Flight. by Yingling, Tito's, and Von Lane. Thanks to those folks so much for their support. CJ, thank you for the knowledge and expertise as always. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes for producing it and the entire On Texas Football staff. If you're not a member, over at ontexasfootball.com, make sure you get over there right now. Sign up using the promo code OTFOG, and that'll get you 1 year of access at ontexasfootball.com for $39.95. Also, make sure you like this video and that you're subscribed to the On Texas Football YouTube channel. That way, whether it's here on the channel or over on the site, you're not missing anything before, during, and after every Texas game this season. For CJ, for Matthew, for the On Texas Football staff, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and until next time, welcome.